Oh, I'm live. I don't think, maybe I do. I don't have any good music. Put some music on my ears, something quiet in the background. Maybe it'll help with my flow. Let's see if this works. Sorry for anybody down the road that watches this. This is just my morning rambling. And what I need to ramble about is things that I learned in APEC yesterday. I'm also preparing for the Sal Pais Thoughts, and then I kind of wanted to show. These are raw. I don't give a fuck. There's so much evidence. There's so much possibilities, and I am getting older. Sal Pais in the patents, and it's in more of a StreamYard thing. Jeremy is going to be doing that broadcast here in a little bit. It's 9:30 a.m. So what I needed to do is start blabbing about the Manila system. I can do this with unadulterated All right, for future reference, take it as it is in there. I do not want to pull the thing apart, but there is. If I pull this out, here, I'll show it with a dummy circuit. Think it's in here. Okay. Bose-Einstein condensate. What I'm trying to show, or what I'm trying to do, is create, or have learned to condition ferrite magnets to hold a Bose-Einstein condensate. This takes a day to thermally cycle a billet. This billet should run at approximately 136 to 137 kilohertz. With the Magnon physics, the larger the wheel, it will be running at 180 volts. This is running at, I don't know, running off of a 12-volt battery supporting this. Just imagine, believe me, there is something similar in this structure. This is not wound correctly, but you get the idea. This is a pickup coil. This part and this part are the same. And if you can imagine, what I was trying to do is make this serviceable. The original device, Arthur Manella system, looked very close to this. Power input, you have a Magnon spinning, you have 3 coils wrapped, X, Y, and Z. And then you have this, which is a series of blocking oscillators, also known as jewel thieves. In contrast to the Manila system, he used to use funky transistors, audio components. I have learned how to do the same thing using monitored transistors and diodes. As I should have a picture, the Arthur Manella system of the original. I do have it in my data. It's not going into live stream, unfortunately. I'm not in StreamYard. Anyway, power comes in. You adjust the knobs, so there's a bunch of little neon bulbs on here, and they act as a vacuum capacitor to find which way is, yeah. This is a nightmare. So thoughts from the top of my head. The Magnon is in here. It's spinning at 180 volts. It's going to use two of these to keep it going, and a third one, the outer coil, literally gets wired into one of them, and then part of it gets returned right back into the input. You still have to have a primary power supply. Oh, damn it, where's my fucking capacitor? Anyway, there will be voltage coming into this. It'll be controlled. It'll be actually, yeah, down to 12 volts. The forward biasing on some of the diodes sets the minimum operating voltage for this section of the circuit. The Magnon is what's doing the work. It's going to output 180 volts ish. Technical note from the maker. I don't know jack and shit about diodes. It's a conundrum, right? Because you got 12 volts coming in, and then it's picked up and tuning, and then it's going to be outputting 180 volts as a DC out, single line DC out. Polarity, I don't know. The whole structure is supposed to be cocked or made north, looking north. So now north polarization facing outwards. So I guess this will be negatively charged. So sometimes polarization south and north makes a lot of sense, and other times when it gets down into here, I'm like, electron is negatively charged. It wants to be attracted to the positive pole, but its flow of electricity is backwards. The notation within electrical engineering is backwards. So anyway, two of these dials are going to affect the coils. Maybe they all five add up and contribute. So that's how I have it wired. So I will be doing some inductance or some dialing in with these other two in order to get these, make it so the bulbs are just barely wanting to flash. If you go down the rabbit hole of studying the Bedini schoolgirl circuit, this is a highly modified Bedini schoolgirl circuit. But what is the debate? It's the reactive power versus real power. So maybe through these blocking oscillators, that's what I'm getting at is a lot of people say, fuck the Bedini schoolgirl circuit, it's not real power. And you come across, people that have lived off the grid that have been using it to keep a system of batteries charged without being tied into the grid. And no, they don't post anything online. Well, once they go off the grid, they're hard to find. So there can be a solid state version of this, which is a wheel, any type of wheel. The bigger the wheel with more magnets, the more amperage it will put out. Your voltage level will be related to the materials, so you'll just get inductive spikes between the core and this. So let's see, without further ado, this is version 1. I have two other ones, which I'll get here in a second, which I've learned to build on the round with, and the music in my ears a little bit annoying. Anyway, building on the round is next, because I don't think the field interaction is very efficient. The topology, maybe I don't know my materials, my copper wiring well enough, but my suspicion is that this design can be improved upon so it's a little bit closer to true unity or the circuit overall looks like it's over unity because there's something that's running at 180 volts, outputting a fraction of that power, and it's only using 12 volts input in order to do that. So from a certain perspective, it looks like, hey, it's outputting more voltage. Well, that's the hard part is the magnon physics is getting the magnon going. From all the papers I've read, I've made previous references to it, but the magnon is running, it's a spin wave. It's a condensation of the neutrons and their polarization. And you get the magnon is a soliton, which is a solitary wave. It's a self-sustaining solitary wave. So if you've ever watched dolphins chasing bubbles underwater, those bubbles are solitons. I'm not saying that the bubbles are magnons, but they share a similar topology to what the topology of the magnon will look like when it's spinning on here up at 180 volts. It's phase locking. It's doing in nature when these things have been reported in UFO crashes, not crashes, abductions. A neutron beam, if it's shot into metal, will occasionally leave magnons. So that gives you like an idea of the cross section of the neutron beam out of the bottom of the emitters, is that they're leaving little donuts. Everything's a spinning field. Spin is the unification between general relativity and quantum mechanics. What I've learned from our education system is that we've taken that out. When they talk about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, it's only position and velocity, and they have disregarded the object's polarization potential, aka spin. Why it's called spin is due to nuclear physics, and like a particle, when it hits a magnetic field, depending on how it's polarized, either right-handed or left-handed. And then there's north and south charge, which will have opposite charges will want to repel, but the magnetic force is based on its magnetic interaction is right-handed. Unless it's antimatter, antimatter uses left-hand rules. So that's why, as are neutrinos. But left-handed means that it'll want to curl around like this. Right-handed means it'll want to spin like this. This is your curl. This is the direction of the vector. This is the force applied, and the interaction of the two is this. So it corkscrews. Or you're a loser any direction you look at it. No, your other left. You're really a loser from any direction you look at it. Anyway, marching band. So phase aligning. So the argument against this is reactive power versus real power. I think the magnon is outputting real power, and then the job of the other parts of this is to maybe phase in the reactive power so you get better output. The dirty hippies taught me to use these little neon bulbs, and Arthur Manellis didn't have that. I should have a normal picture of it. But therein lies the bitch of the wiring harness. This is simplified and does not represent the true complexity of wiring this. Herein is the little part. This is your power input. Like I said, one coil. If we trace one coil, in this case, they say it's the Y coil. Yeah, these two lines. X coil, excuse me. It gets wired in like this. I don't know. That's literally, if this is voltage in, then two of these get wired in like that. And I don't think that's right. I think it's got to go into, voltage goes into all of them. One of these are blocking oscillators. They can split a load. They're transistor based. So you put one of these on the load, or this load on one half of the leg, and the output is on the other half of the leg. And then it's got a couple other little bodies that are, if they're all tied together, there's some sort of inductance that comes through. It's a fucking nightmare, folks. The problem is that the Magnon does not have, I need to put an AIAA. There is no electrical symbol for the Magnon. This is generation 1. This is supposed to be a one-to-one duplication of the Manila circuit. Oh, there we go. Sorry, folks. Such is the price you pay for free information. This is Gen 2. This is approximately in the same state of harnessing as Mark 1. And earlier I had it set up so I have voltage going into each one of these. I have not fully fired them up yet because the trick is learning to condition the Magnon to create this Bose-Einstein condensate. This is an evolution of thought. Once again, I've made reference to this, but this is the outer coil. This, you can see this wiring. Here's the harnessing, input and output. Supposedly some of it goes right back into the beginning. And so this little structure that the white wiring, orange and white wiring, is essentially the same as this. Humanity likes to work with bricks. We need to learn to work on the round. That is a fucking pain in the ass. This circuit. So this is an attempt forward at trying to theoretically improve output. This is a chunk of bismuth. This is conditioned a toroidal ferrite that has been conditioned weakly using one of these magnets. I'm in dangerous proximity to this material. Ferrite ceramic can be degaussed, and then you can play around with trying to create a scalar magnetic field. This should have a north-facing polarization on the outside and a south-facing polarization on the inside. North outwards will be more attractive to the electric field, so it should want to be attracted to that and slightly repelled by the similar facing, similar charge of correct polarization on the inside. This is bismuth, just hot poured, and unfortunately was a destructive pour on another magnet, but yeah. It's another piece of ferrite. So when you start playing with a lot of ring magnets, watch here. See that white line of force come up and focus? There's a node, a virtual node, and then the field. Sorry, this is all reversed for me, people. So down here, I'm trying to, once the Magnon is running, I'm trying to use, bismuth is super heavy. So I'm starting to get into gravetto electric engineering. This is a spintronic circuit. The field topology should be much more efficient. And this way, when I was learning to play, there is a circuit that's been in existence or known about. The Nazis came up with it. It's like this. They're using 6 pieces of ferrite with a core or iron rod and a couple capacitors. And when it's in the right shape with the right field topology, it will start self-generating. It's interacting with the planetary field. Even right now, this could be interacting with the field due to the topology. So this is supposedly like my attempt at a collector plate. This is probably junk. I'm not very happy with it. 2 of the coils, I'm working on an antenna design. I hope to have that part finished in another day or so. It's got a learning curve with the makerspace upstairs and the laser cutter. This is going to go long. So phase, I know that the topology of the magnon will create a concentration of charge in here. My understanding from the square circuit is that two of the legs, 2 of the coils, the X and Y coil, for example, I was told that they were bifilar. Here in this part, I need to get the scary magnet out of my hand. Ugh. So Z, X, Y, and Z. I don't believe the author of this schematic had access to the pictures and whatnot. I was told that 2 of the branches should be more like the Z coil, and one of them is like the X coil. So this Y coil and how it is wired in, I think it's an educated guess. My design, this power coming in through the Y coil, because it does run in, has been replaced by having these all wired in series. And I'm assuming in operation that if these are in series, once it's charged up, the coils are like capacitors, and then they have a diode. So it acts as a diode capacitor filter ladder overall. With, at this point, at this configuration, before everything, while this was naturally polarized, the rods right around here would start to, if I jiggled this, I could get the rods to interact. So this is the right spacing for the near field reactance of the innate ferrite, or the innate reactance of the preconditioned ferrite. When the magnon is running, it will have, I think, due to the material, it's basically buzzing the material at its operational frequency, which is based off of its susceptibility and the speed of sound. The other factor is its thermal. This is a thermal electric converter, so the rate at which this transmits heat through it is the rate at which it will strive for thermal equilibrium in the surrounding environment, which is what the electrostatic field, it's creating a bubble around this as it's running. The far field effects will extend out to approximately at 137 kilohertz, that's 2,200 meters. So a little bit over, these thick bricks. This is a thinner material, thinner ferrite. It should have higher operating frequency, but we have to specifically find its susceptibility and equate that into an operational frequency. And I smack it with the magnetizer, which is behind me. Back to the antenna design. So this one is probably going to be a bitch to tune. These components are the beefy dials on Mark 1 are more, they can get tuned and fiddled with. Once this is tuned, these are just, I'm doing it by potential and looking at the light bulbs. Here again, you'll see that there's These are essentially joule thieves or blocking oscillators, transistor-based blocking gate, transistor-based transformer. This will be turned into a fancy interwoven or two. I have a fishbone pattern that I've designed. I need to go laser cut. I have an inner and outer roll ring. I need to generate a crisscrossing force at 90 degrees, and then charge and phase, right? Electrical engineering, we're dealing with three things. So phase angle, amplitude, and voltage level. You can have a lot of voltage and a minimal current or minimal magnetic force coming out of it anyway. Lid goes back on the pot. Artificial ground plus power out. It is circular. This is dumb thoughts on initial shielding. This is a lead foil, a lead sheet, and this is some of that fancy aluminum. Just wrinkled. It has more surface area to it, so I don't know. Not done yet. Work in progress. That's Mark 2. It's approximately, I think this one's a little bit further ahead on harnessing, wiring the harness. I still have to do the main hike through this one and get power in and everything wired. It's using 12 volts to create 180 volts. This is Mark 3. It's approximately in the same stage as wiring as the first two. Let's ignore this. I'm an artist, and sometimes I like to put on a show. So that is just material I made. This is closer to what I believe an operational unit should look like. These are more, I read through some ham radio stuff. This is the correct, this is more efficient. I have a picture somewhere, which I should have. This is getting into reactance. Much more efficient. Slightly better. Again, this is just fucking hillbilly wiring, but everything should be, I should be able to wire these. Sorry, I need to catch my flow again. Got music going on. So anyway, closer. This is just aluminum. This could be made out of mu metal. Again, trying to stay, I need to redo one of the cases in here and incorporate these, playing around with the bismuth and the ferrite, having a more dense element. Gravity is just that simple. The heavier the element, the more gravitational pull it has. Bismuth is diamagnetic, so I'm hoping to create a heavy repulsive moment. It's attractive gravitationally. Electromagnetically, it's repulsive. It'll be diamagnetic. It'll generate a field that is diagonal. Dia means opposed. It'll create a magnetic field in opposition to an external magnetic field. And they use the fancy word orthogonal, which just means each one of my fingers is orthogonal to the other one. So if this is generating a field going this way, this is going to want to create a field like this. So I'm going to start to use a right hand rule. And this one is weakly conditioned as well, using one of the strong magnets. So, This design, you can stack them. I'm not going to turn it sideways. Again, this is at a rough prototype, but this is an evolution of the design with an improvement of components and miniaturization. Technically this is the same as these. I just have more coiling on there, beefier coil, because I want to try to absorb more. This one's more, you need to have a high voltage capacitor for the output, because it's putting out 180 volts. And yeah. So this part's just for show at this point, but I don't know. Get into a flying saucer. I guess I have seen flying saucers, and I have not been in one. Humanity is not building. You start to see, right? It goes in there somehow. That's how I'm making my money, everybody. I'm internet famous. Anyway. Sal Pais, we've all been reading his stuff. Excited to walk through my research. Push me, so yeah. Sal Pais. We had APEC yesterday. It was really nice. Here I should show. I wish you could go over into screen sharing. Oh, he's up the thing. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 papers to read now. One of them's on a power system. He's using plasma. The secret sauce in the plasma is plasma motor or ceramics that contain heavy elements that emit beta positive. Beta positive emission. Oh, I'm testing positive for those beta particles. Are you alpha or beta? Go beta. Beta's got more. Are you alpha or beta? Everybody wants to be alpha. No, you don't. You want to be beta or better gamma. And you got good penetrating power. And you can start messing with those strange and charm quarks and like, hey, I'm gamma. I'm gonna penetrate you anyway. It's gotta get fucking raunchy someday. Academia is a fucking shit show. It is a popularity contest for how smart and how well you speak some of these. Oh, well, I know alpha and I know, but alpha particles and alpha are not the same thing. Oh, where were we last night? Me and Perron, considering the Schrodinger equation written as HIH, imaginary H. There's a difference between H and H bar, folks. And like I said earlier, the problem with quantum mechanics is it's just either velocity or position, and they're forgetting the fucking polarization. We're dealing with 3 dimensions, and it's being taught to us in 2 dimensions. With 2 states, 2 variables, and we need 3 variables. X, Y, and Z. It's there. You just have to scratch your head and get over it. You can think of the structure of equation 1 and rewrite brackets. There's a difference in the brackets. It's not, they're vertical lines and the absolute value of x, but such as x equals y plus z with bracket notation. With these respective terms given as the corresponding terms of equation 1, performing a simple dimensional scaling analysis on the previous relation. Performing a simple dimensional divided by scaling your analysis. So here with that statement, Pius is saying, hey, just scale up these microscopic quantum events to macroscopic events. On the previous relation, we note that x relative to z, we can obtain a voltage, a vector, a field potential. Oh, I see. Yeah. The force wants to come out equatorially. It's coming in here on the top and getting ejected here, in kind of, sort of. And then you may have something going on underneath that's supporting it. You know, there's a couple ways to skin a cat, but he just, in this paper, you got to think about the solar system, even the galaxy, and that there's something being emitted equatorially. I think the camera's up there, but it's right there. Anyway, it's just boring. Moreover, by considering x relative to y, we can obtain that the wavelength is proportional to the Planck's constant divided by the mass and velocity, namely the de Broglie wavelength. De Broglie. It's a French word. De Broglie. Wavelength of the particle, where v is the velocity of the particle of mass m. So h, Planck's constant divided by the mass times its velocity gives you a wavelength. And L sub r, reference length, is written as velocity with respect to time, also given that the reference length is proportional to, the reference length is equal to the wavelength. Something is moving. He is tiptoeing with contraction and the Lorentz formation. We're getting tired of it. But oh, Ashton just showed it as the plane was getting sucked into the monopole. It shrank. It goes through the squishy, sucky, shooty, zoomy. We don't have words for that stuff. Quantum tunneling, the vehicles teleport. I've tried to do it on, it's not a piece of paper to do it with. They can teleport. I've tried to demonstrate it poorly using sight gags, but I can't move fast enough. I need to give a better presentation. Engineering the superforce. He's got two in there. Oh, space-time, and there we go. Considering the linearized relation, c squared is equal to 1 over the inverse of the permeability and permittivity of free space relative to the permeability and permittivity of the material, such that mu naught and mu are vacuum and non-vacuum magnetic permeabilities. Non-vacuum means the whole material, this shit. Here I'm reading section 5. So when he's talking about the vacuum, which is mu, and out here is the vacuum. Squish the vacuum. And here is the non-vacuum. This is the non-vacuum. And from there you get into metamaterial engineering. I got some Tovalu. I love you, lovely. Anyway, given the fact that the superforce can be written c to the fourth over g. Okay, now here's where you have to, if you're reading this paper, you do a loop, because you got to remember that big G is the same as the strong nuclear force. He did make that posit here. Forces of unification. Inverse of alpha, 1 over 3. Where did it go? Finding the superforce in the Schrodinger, I think it was section 3? No, it's maybe further up here. So the constant units divided by length. Yeah, superforce equals the energy gradient for both the Planck scale and the horizon scale. This is his second paper, so he's bridged it up a little bit. This one's pretty simple if you know some. You got to study black holes and then go heavy into electrical engineering. I kind of did that. This isn't the paper where he tells you to treat the strong nuclear force as, and far field gravitation as the same thing. He does do that in the paper. And that's exactly what Bob Lazar was talking about. So to recap, the superforce is the Planck force, hence it represents the energy gradient at Planck scales. Thus, it can be written as Planck energy divided by Planck length. Therefore, the superforce is quantum in nature and thus fundamental. Quantum in this case, everything, it can only appear in whole integers. You're never going to find a half a proton. That's quantum. That's a quanta. You're never going to find a part of a photon. You'll find a single photon or multiples of that, of a single photon in a packet. That is a quanta. A quantity, quantum, same root. How does not anyway, blah, in a nutshell, in view of the possible existence of the superforce, which equals the Planck force, exists at every point in space and time at the Planck scale. General relativity, that is poor, needs some rewriting, it needs some sophistry, academic sophistry. David Chester. Anyway, he's getting at the same stuff. From my view, the issues between general relativity and quantum mechanics is quantum mechanics has been dumbed down to two vectors, to position or velocity, and it's cutting out this whole right-hand rule, the curl, divergence, the spin state as well. You can know, how does that go? Heisenberg's complete. You can either completely know its spin vector or its direct exact position or its momentum, but not all three precisely at the same time. And that's why God does not play with dice, right? Yes, he does. All right, thanks, folks. It's Heisenberg uncertainty principle to all three.